everyone, welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. I'm very excited today. We're going to be talking about skin. I'm with the beautiful Joy Isaacs, who's the founder and CEO of Argentum. And we have hosted an event together in London. And every time I see Joy, we're like a walking podcast. We chit-chat about health, about skin, about gut health, about the microbiome, about our children, about our experiences. And every time I think, oh my God, we need to stop talking and save it for the podcast. So at long last, I have Joy with me here in the studio. Hi, Joy. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Yelda. Thanks for having me.
So, Joy, you are the founder and CEO of Argentum Apothecary, and you grew up surrounded by the natural beauty of South Africa. It's there that you first discovered the healing qualities of silver. You then moved to the UK, and your first career was in corporate finance before you moved on to become head of marketing for Give and Hawkes. So it's after having your children that you experienced the real powerful qualities, healing qualities of silver, because you treated an infection after surgery. So from these experiences with silver, you started thinking that there was a potential, and you had a vivid dream of using silver's immense skin healing qualities. Subsequent to this dream and revelation, you undertook a period of research and collaboration, which resulted in a patented fusion of silver hydrosol and DNA HP. The award-winning formula has expanded into a full range of products with a global reach. You're on e-commerce, you're in luxury retailers, you have your flagship store in Notting Hill. I love this story. It started with a dream.
It sounds very American. And I have to explain to people, I usually caveat it with, it was a nighttime dream. It wasn't a dream. Maybe it was, but I wanted to start a business. I had the kids, and I actually just sort of put a message out to the universe of it will come to me. I had some dead-end ideas that didn't kind of have enough energy behind them. And I really did wake from a nighttime dream that actually looked very similar to the flagship we have in Notting Hill. It was an apothecary-style store, and silver was the theme. Silver in skincare was the theme. And I started to share it. I started to mood board it. And actually, people's reaction, they became quite excited. And I knew how incredible silver was. I mean, I had a necrotic wound, and the silver mesh dressings that the doctors used saved the day, quite frankly. And I think that must have just been in my subconscious. That experience had happened maybe 2 months before the dream. Amazing how the power of dreams can kind of manifest or bring messages. You know, the subconscious can sort of carry that through the dream. And then I was just very lucky that someone introduced me to Dr. Gilbert Musin, who's a leader in the field of dermocosmetic science in France, a French dermocosmetic scientist. And in France, silver is not something that is well known. He was fascinated. It's not something that had been used in cosmetics. He started to research it and was like, I'd love to be involved. So it was with his help. I think he has 100 patents behind his name. He's very well decorated. The help with the science that he brought to the table. We have patented this now, and it's the core active ingredients in our skincare for the silver and DNA. Yeah.
So what is DNA HP?
So DNA HP is the DNA polymer extracted from salmon milt. And for those who are not sure what milt is, I'm sorry to say, that's salmon sperm. And these are very strong fibers. This is the highest quality DNA in cosmetics. It's a fiber form. It's a Nobel Prize winning technology that they use to actually extract the DNA. And the salmon themselves, these are not farm salmon. This is freshwater wild salmon from the Alaskan Sea. The Canadian government only allows a certain amount of these fish to be farmed so that they complete the life cycle of the salmon, as we know. You know, they swim back upriver and go back to the place of their birth. So only a certain amount are allowed to be fished, and we use the byproduct from the fishing market, and this is what is frozen and sent to a lab in France, and this is where the DNA extraction happens. And you're probably saying, why? What's all the point of that, and what does it do? Well, it carries hydration. It carries 10,000 times its weight in water. And most people will be aware of now hyaluronic acid, which is very popular. It's in a lot of skincare, and that carries 1,000 times its weight in water. This is 10 times more effective than that. It's not commonly used because it's extremely expensive. So this is a luxury ingredient. We've only found one manufacturer in the world that can produce it to this quality. And I think hyaluronic acid sort of took off because it's easy to produce. Its bacteria comes from a bacteria, it's easy to grow in a petri dish, whereas the DNAHP is a little bit more sophisticated. And it's becoming popular now because people are using it in injectables. So where a lot of people were having hyaluronic injectables to stimulate collagen and elastin, this DNAHP is definitely taking the injectable world by storm, but we use it in our ingredients and as a part of our patent.
Amazing. Thanks for telling us and explaining. What I noticed was really high quality of your product. So it's hard to sell to me. I admit it. I'm extremely picky, and I'm not very sensitive to marketing. I use some products that are extremely affordable, whether it is food or beauty products, and they work, and other things that can be expensive because they work. But I'm not one to buy something that's been marketed to me. I just see how my skin reacts, how the texture feels, how the results over time. Because I have tried products where the result was amazing immediately, but then a week later nothing happens, and over a month there's no difference, or maybe even a little bit of degradation because I wouldn't have been using better things for my skin. So it is important to give a product time. It is interesting what you're saying about the silver. I experienced something with my youngest child who has very sensitive skin. When he was little, he had this common infection called molluscum, and it looked pretty gross to me. And I kept seeing doctors, and they were like, it's going to go with time. I'm like, how did he catch this? Or maybe in Nepal. I was like, it's absolutely gross. Can't we get rid of it? No, just give it time. It wasn't going away. So I just looked up on Google, and really, I should have done this before. I say to people, don't look up your conditions and things like that on Google, but for some things, it is good to use the internet for research. And I found that colloidal silver had been shown to be effective. So I ordered even a cheap one on Amazon. In 2 weeks, his infection was gone.
Oh no, it's incredible.
And I couldn't believe that a single GP hadn't told me such a simple thing that actually was all over Mum's Net. And a lot of mothers knew about it. I didn't. The power, the healing powers of silver.
It's incredible. And I think, even now, 13 years later, I'm just finding out more and more about silver. I think a lot of people don't know, but silver's actually from supernova explosions from stars. It was not formed in the Earth core. It's like gold. And I know scientists only found that out about 5 years ago. And we all whooped in the office when we heard that, because we believe it to be such a magical thing. And then knowing it's from the stars makes it even more so. But all metals essentially have an antibacterial function, and we use stainless steel in the kitchen. We know if you put some salmonella or something onto a stainless steel worktop, it will last a few hours and it will die. Silver works within seconds. So silver out of the metals is definitely the clear front-run winner for being antibacterial. It disrupts the cell membrane, sort of punctures a hole in it. And I think what makes it just the best thing ever is that it is attracted to the bad bacteria. So it doesn't destroy the microbiome of the skin. That was a huge worry to me. You sort of think about, okay, you take an antibiotic, it's just killing the whole gut. So yes, it's getting the baddies, but it's getting the goodies too. Whereas silver's not doing this. So silver's been used for thousands of years. The Romans would put silver coins in milk. NASA lined their water tanks in their spaceships with silver. It has been around and in certain cultures and in different forms. And there are different regulations across the globe. I know in America, they use it as a supplement. You can drink it. Like anything you would need to, it is a metal. So it is a trace metal found in mammalian milk, but it is not essential metal to the body, like copper, say, for example. But used in the right way, it's sensational and sensational for healing. Yeah, I just think it makes sense in skincare. And, I am seeing one or two brands come up with it, and it's fantastic, especially for teenage acne and problems like that. So our clinical trials, which we did on our hero product, we kind of spanned it across all ages. People don't believe you when you sort of say, oh, this is a sort of all skin types and ages. But actually, if it's good for skin, it really is good for skin. And so we had targeting fine lines and wrinkles all the way through to acne, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea. Rosacea can be a reaction to the bacteria, feces, and debris on the skin. If silver's eradicating the bacteria, even just allowing your skin a break to naturally heal or restore or repair itself, that just does an enormous amount to the inflammation. And I know you're an expert on inflammation, and we've talked about this before. It's tackled from so many different areas, from the food we eat, our gut inside, but also the products we put on our skin.
Yeah, it all works together. It's about giving the body, the skin, all the tools to get better. And indeed, on the Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle, we have a section for acne, a section for psoriasis, eczema, rosacea. All of this is covered because it's always fueled by inflammation and a poor microbiome. In fact, even melasma, which I suffer from, and when I'm inflamed, it flares much more.
Yes.
And respecting the microbiome of the skin, we are bacteria, inside and out, on our skin, in the air around us, in our gut, and it is all linked. It works together. It's not separated. That's why if you improve your diet, your skin microbiome improves, and if you improve the products you're using, your skin microbiome improves too. And during lockdown and during COVID, that's what horrified me. We were all using these antibacterial gels on top of being separated from people. So our bacteria became less diverse. And I was thinking, I know they're doing this to protect us, but actually if our bacteria is less diverse, our immune system is weaker. So that was not great. And with that in mind, that's why I do not like antibacterial gels. And I would much rather wash my hands with water and soap rather than eradicate everything.
Definitely. I had a lockdown baby, my fourth boy, what we call in South Africa a lammetjie, which is a late lamb, because my eldest is 21. But anyway, he arrived in 2020, about a month before lockdown. And his generation, that first 2 years in nursery school, all those kids were unbelievably sick. They just had not had the exposure to the bacteria that they needed. And it's really, especially for my little one, it did set him back quite a bit. I mean, it was just constant. And I can compare it to the older boys. That generation or that era of kids just didn't get the right bacteria.
Sadly, yeah.
Yes.
And that's why, for example, doctors have a very high T cell count, which is immune system cells, because they're exposed all day long to different bacteria, different viruses, and that strengthens their immune system. So you had 3 children. You had a career, as we were saying, in corporate finance and then in marketing. And you started this venture before having a 4th.
I think, I never genuinely believed I could do both. I definitely had the split mindset of like, you're either a mum or you're either a career woman. And that was my mindset at that time. And then after I had the first 3 and the third was then at school, I was like, I really want to do something, but I have to change my mindset. It has to be at my core. I need to believe that I can do both. So I really just had to readjust my whole framework of it. And I actually believe that's what steered me well. I have adjusted it. And you know what? I do cope and I do split it out. And actually having the little one was, that was a surprise. But I think lockdown for a lot of people, COVID, was a blessing and a curse to some. And for me, it was a blessing because at that time when he was very young, I could work from home. So the timing ended up being okay with that. But it is a juggle, and that's what mums do, don't they? They juggle things all over the place. But I think it's also if you're kind of more prone to workaholism, which I can be, You've got to put the tools down. And that's what I do. I definitely just compartmentalize. I put it down. That's it. The day's over. I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Well done. And that's probably also because it is your own venture. So as demanding as it is, it also gives you the flexibility that the corporate world might not be able to give you.
Yeah. You worked in banking, didn't you?
I did. And, I knew that I was less well paid than men who were older than me and were producing less than I was. And I can remember, a vivid example, there was a guy next to me who had been married a couple of times and he had 4 kids. And I was producing more than him. I was 26, he was, I think, 42, 43. And I knew that, he was just going to be paid more because I could tell. And I used to fight for my bonuses. It was an incredible, tough negotiation to the point where one day my boss, a Greek man, I was haggling with him like in the souk of Marrakesh. I knew I had to put up a fight to be paid what I deserved because I was consistently producing much more than the target that was given to me. And at some point he ran out of arguments and he said to me, Yalda, just be patient. Look at me. And he used to drive the tackiest green apple Lamborghini. And I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
You gave it away.
And I looked at him and I said to him, George, I'm not patient. In 5 years, I'm out of here. I'm going to be raising children. So you have to pay me now. Because I knew that in that world, there was no way I was going to continue get rewarded for my work and having children at that time. I don't know how it is now. And he did something for which he'd get completely cancelled today, but it made me laugh. He looked at me and he said, you know what I love about you? You're a traditional woman.
Oh.
But he was, I was not offended. He made me laugh and he ended up paying me a good bonus. But the reason why I'm telling this story is before doing my business, before setting up my business, I thought to myself, no one will ever decide of my pay again. No one is to tell me how well I've done. How well I've done is what I've actually done and the numbers that I get. I'm not to have good numbers and someone give me an excuse of why I'm not getting paid, because if I'm working, I want the reward. And I say it, I'm an ambitious, hardworking woman, and I'm also a dedicated mother. I'm very family oriented. I don't believe I could have it all at the same time then. It was not possible, but with maturity, with time, you understand that you can, experience of life. You become a more mature woman and you understand that you can make it all happen at the same time, but you needed those years of experience for confidence and to work it out. And that's how I'm able to manage as well.
I get you, because I remember in banking, if you went home at 7 o'clock, they'd go, you on a half day? It was like that. So you're right. There's not a chance in hell. And maybe that was my mindset, that I could have actually raised a family. I actually worked with some women that did, and it was I watched the pressure they were under. It was extreme. But I want to pick up on something you said there, where when you speak to people who either start their own thing or make a success of themselves or are really driven, it's usually because someone has done something to them, or there's been something negative that's happened. And some of the most famous, I remember the founder of Green and Blacks, and I listened to a talk she did, and it was a teacher at school that said, you'll never amount to something. And it was that literally stayed with her forever and drove her. And I look back at my life, and a few people told me certain things that I was like, yeah, I'll show you. And I think some of those negative experiences can be totally spun around and used as a fuel to kind of drive you.
Yeah. So when I was getting divorced, my ex-husband looked at me and said to me, oh, you're going to have to work again. Which was crazy because I had been wanting to work, and that was a point of contention between us. So I looked at him, I said, of course, i.e. freedom. And he said to me, knowing 2 masters in finance, when I met him age 27, I was making more money than him at the same age. So I have more degrees than him, speak 5 languages, same age, I was making more money. And he looked at me and said, yeah, you're going to have to work in a shop, which first, there's nothing wrong with working in a shop, but secondly,
That was the fuel you needed.
it was the
That's the fuel. You know what? You just say thank you. Give him a big kiss on the cheek as you just say that. I mean, my ex-husband said to me, he was joking, but in a comment, I mean, well, what do you know? You're just a housewife. And he was kind of half tongue-in-cheeking it. But I tell you what, that's been rocket fuel for me. What do I know? I'm just a housewife.
But there are moments like this. Actually, I had a moment with my eldest son. He was little, and all he could see was me being dedicated to him and his little brother, which is what I wanted. Let's not get me wrong. When my children were little, that was my choice. I wanted to be fully there for them. It's only when they started going back to school that I wanted to do something else, but my health didn't allow me. But whenever I felt a bit better, I had this drive in me, which I've always had. Anyway, I was reading a story to him, and at that time there was a book called You Choose, where the first page there was the world, you chose a country. The second page there were houses. So first he looked at the world, he chose England. Second page he had different houses, he picked the castle. Mm-hmm. Then the third page he had to pick the furniture for the castle, so he was choosing. So he picked some, castle type furniture for nights. And he chose a pink dressing table. I said to him, Will, why are you choosing this? He looked at me, he said, well, I'm going to need a girl to look after me.
Oh.
And he was only small. He was, I think, 4 years old. He didn't read yet. It was before reception. And I thought to myself, this is what he sees. This is all I do. All I do is look after the boys, email their dad after lunch, ask him what he had so I make something different for dinner, is to run the house. And there is nothing wrong with that. I was happy doing that then, but it put something in my mind that once the boys are older, I want to show them the other things that are in me. I'm not just a mom, I'm also a friend, I'm also someone. I let my hair down and I love dancing and I can be goofy and silly. I have an ambitious side to me. I have a very empathetic side to me. I have all these things that make my personality. I love art. I can have, they call it the Moroccan. I can really get upset very quickly and come back down just as fast. And all of these things are me. And I was keen to show the boys that I was not just a woman who looks after everyone.
Absolutely. I think, I'd like to hear about your childhood because growing up in South Africa, it was quite backward then in the 80s. And I mean, I laugh about it with my mother now, but my sister and I used to have to serve dinner to my brother. I mean, we would wash up and actually give the meal to your dad and your brother. And when it came to schooling or, tertiary education, it was like the boy, he's going to have the career. At school, I went to a girls-only school and they were like, just do typing because you guys will be a secretary, and that's what you'll do before you have a baby. So it was very old-fashioned. And I had a lot of strange programming around all of that. And so I feel privileged, Our moms didn't really get that opportunity that we have. We are the ones, our generation, that have kind of balanced both, or gone out and really gone for it and had the opportunity to do so.
I can't say that about my mom. She was bossing my dad around.
So you didn't have that.
My mom was like from an aristocratic Moroccan family. She's barely worked, so she's not into work. She's bossed my dad around her whole life, and she spent her life drinking champagne and having fun. So quite the opposite. Okay. She, we're like chalk and cheese. However, my grandmother, her mom, had a great influence on me. So I watched her have autoimmune issues, like I have. My mom also has autoimmunity. She has Hashimoto's. And seeing my grandmother with systemic scleroderma, which is a horrible disease, and being so helpless, choked me up as a kid because she raised me the first 2 years of my life. And in a way, today, every person I heal, I feel like I'm helping my grandmother. And if if my grandmother was alive today, I would know how to reduce her inflammation, what I didn't then. But it was really formative for me because my grandfather, her husband, was very much into natural remedies, and he was into natural plants. He'd take me to his different farms and show me, explain to me all the properties of every plant. He knew the name of every single tree and thing that grew. And my poor grandmother was his guinea pig, so he would do the weirdest mixes for her that she had to drink. But she was a great inspiration for me, and actually I've dedicated my work to her. There's a little dedication on my website. It's for my grandmother and my children. And she was very much a woman at home. My grandfather was the patriarch, but she had a great influence on him. She was a strong woman, and she told me from a young age, don't get married immediately. Go to the best schools, and then you'll choose a good husband. She did not want me to not study. She pushed me towards that.
Fantastic.
So she was quite ambitious for me.
My mother was the one into, she was a aromatherapist and reflexologist, and she was really into health, and she did a lot of investigative work because she had very severe eczema. And so I remember as a teenager, I mean, I could hear her scratching from the next bedroom. She'd be tearing her skin off. And she started an elimination diet. She started fasting, and she started bringing in food groups. She's a celiac. She worked that out, I think 25 years ago. She stopped gluten. And in those 25 years ago, it was like you couldn't get anything and no one understood it. But she's never had eczema since. So it was a night and day, I have to say. It was night and day what that was doing to her gut. And I just heard an amazing talk where they're trying to... I've actually stopped gluten myself. I'm not a celiac, but just the idea of your gut is like a cheesecloth, and gluten starts to tear holes in that, and so stuff is getting into your bloodstream that is building the intolerances. It was kind of described in quite a lay term that let me understand that actually it's just the stress it's causing that then it's the knock-on effect, and it's quite a few grains that do that. And it's just, I'm conscious of that now. I was very unwell last year, and I knew that I had to change my diet. I was going to get a more sinister illness. That's how I felt. I could just feel it. And I have to say I'm feeling a lot better now. You know, I'm an advocate of everything you do and everything you teach, and you know, you're a walking example of that, and all the people, as you say, that you heal. I mean, I've read the testimonies of the people that use your protocols, and I mean, it's sensational. And I just believe with skincare, it's, even from the very beginning, it is not just a topical thing. You know, it's holistic. You have to approach these things inside out and outside in. And even from a psychological standpoint, you know, it's got to be attacked at all sides to find that balance. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with gluten these days is wheat, for example, has 3 times more gluten today than 50 years ago, because it allows the bakers not to knead it for as long as they used to. So it's easier to work with. Gluten is a protein that's, well, like the name, it's glue. You know, it's sticky. That's what makes the focaccia bouncy. And if a wheat has a lot of gluten, it's less work for the bakers. So over time, we started selecting crops that were lower in gluten, but the problem is it's literally sticking our insides and leading to what you have just described, which is leaky gut. Many people think they have intolerances. When people go for an intolerance test and they get a result of 20 things that they're intolerant to, if they go for an intolerance test the next week, it'll be maybe 25 things that are different. The reason for that is it is not the food that shows in the test that is the problem, it's the leaky gut. So little particles of food will leak into the bloodstream when the gut should be sealed. The body produces antibodies. Those antibodies show up in an intolerance test. So when people come to me and they say, before I start the Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle, do I need to do any tests? I say no. You start with the Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle. You reseal your gut. You improve your gut health, your microbiome, which of course will lead to better skin microbiome as well. And only after that you can check for your vitamin levels, because by improving your microbiome, you're also absorbing nutrients better from the food. A poor microbiome not only leads to higher levels of inflammation, to poorer mental health, poorer immunity, but also to poor absorption. And many issues can be linked to vitamin deficiencies. Such people don't necessarily fix the issue by taking vitamins because they will not absorb them as well either. So they're stuck in a negative loop, and the key to healing all of this is to improve their diets and basically jump on, a lifestyle similar to Eat, Burn, Sleep. Coming back to your products and all your knowledge, I want to pick your brains about something. It's time for a little break. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. A reminder to all our listeners to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and anyone who might enjoy listening to it. We also have a discount code for all our podcast listeners, which I will be sharing at the end. Keep listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Coming back to your products and all your knowledge, I want to pick your brains about something. My boys, I hope they don't listen to this podcast.
Listen, the chances of our teenage boys listening to this podcast is 0.
Yes, true.
They talk about my product as creme de la crème and make jokes about it. So no, don't worry there.
They make jokes about me too. So my children have discovered perfume. So we went from having a battle over bath time, particularly with my youngest, who would have a bath and forget to use shampoo, come out smelling like a wet dog, to overwashing, because I think they discovered girls and now they're very conscious about smelling nice, and so they're using perfume, they're using deodorants, they're using a lot of products which can be toxic. I'm trying to have a conversation with them about it. They're not really listening. Many people are aware about the toxicity of deodorants and the aluminium in them, but not many people are aware of the toxicity of perfumes and their impact on the skin microbiome. I know you have a range of skin microbiome friendly perfumes, but can you explain to us the science behind it?
Absolutely. The more, starting this in this business and asking questions, and I think it really served me well not coming from a beauty background. I find when people are kind of trained and in a space, they don't ask those questions, and you come sort of left field and you start to poke holes in things. And so things like I'd ask the scientist, okay, some of these products have a trillion active ingredients. And he's like, your skin can't even absorb this many ingredients, or there's loads of fragrances, or washing hair. And over the years, I'm a 100% advocate of less is more. And with the washing, even the products that you're putting on the skin, I know that doesn't mean I'll sell more products, but really I genuinely believe less is more. I don't think that the Korean 20-step beauty routine is the way to go. I think that people got to connect with their skin and look at it. The microbiome of the skin is super important. And when we spray perfumes, or even using shampoos that drips down our shoulders and all over our body, we're absorbing all the chemicals and we're absorbing these perfumes. Now, perfumes, what you have is you have your natural perfume scents, ingredients, and then you have nature identical ones. Sometimes that makes sustainable sense to have something that's nature identical because it's quite disruptive to maybe, you might not want to kill a whale to get a particular scent from it or whatever. So that's fine. But there is a whole list of fragrances that are quite toxic and shouldn't really be used, and they are endocrine disruptors. So we're starting to see a lot of that come through now. And so for hormones, for teenagers, for the problems that we're facing, endocrine disruption with fragrances is a huge thing. Equally, burning candles now, taking... And by the way, this is also cost. Our fragrances are expensive. Our fragrances, all the ingredients are locally sourced in grass. Our perfumer uses as natural as possible ingredients. We do use some natural identical ones, but our rating is really high. That comes at a price. So if you have a cheap supermarket product, it can hide, the ingredients of the fragrance can hide under parfum. You'll see that in the ingredients list at the back, and there's a world and a day of chemicals in there. Trying to choose something that is just maybe a simple one essential oil, like it has a eucalyptus smell or a peppermint. But luckily things are starting to change. There are new laws coming in where allergens will have to be listed. More allergens have been added to the list. So our INCI lists will be getting longer. The whole thing stems around fragrances, the IP, the intellectual property around the fragrance creation. You can't patent it. So the EU regulatory board, or globally, you're allowed to just put a whole load of toxic soup under parfum. So there's all the hidden nasties. And so, yes, these kids are just slathering this on. I don't know about you, but I've always been super sensitive to fragrance smells. I'd walk into a perfume hall and I'd want to be sick. I'd have to leave. So much so that it was a real decision on whether we even put a fragrance in our skincare. And that was a real, only after I met our perfumer and sort of found out how she worked and could guarantee that was going to be okay. I didn't even want to go near that for the skincare. And so when we went into fragrances, our collection of archetype fragrances, we use archetypes in the psychology of beauty with our skincare. We give everyone a archetype card at random. I know I've pulled one for you before, the ruler lady. But these fragrances, it worried me because we're a skincare company, and I was like, oh, and what are we going to spray alcohol all over their skin and in their hair? This just doesn't align. I can't marry this. So working with her and finding a water plant emulsion technology, which is a micro emulsion of a milky fluid, it's water and oil, and with the natural fragrance. This is an alcohol and solvent-free solution that also delivers a long wear eau de parfum. And I was very nervous because we got to that stage, and then I was like, we have to put them through microbiome testing. And we have the 12 archetypes, and then the Become, which is our signature scent. That's a lot of fragrances to put through microbiome testing and have one fail. You know, we'd been through so much testing trying to get them to work with this WPE, water plant emulsion technology. And they passed, thank goodness they passed with flying colors, and we were able to launch this. And I think we're one of the first in the world that we've ever heard of microbiome-friendly fine fragrance. For me, it's just the integrity. And like you said earlier, you know, there are some very cheap, reasonable products which are fantastic. And there's some very expensive products which are complete rubbish. I just think for me, the products have to have integrity, and I won't compromise. And I know that a lot of corporate businesses would just strip it back. But for me, at the end of the day, the product has to not harm the skin. This is about care. It's not makeup. We're not selling makeup. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with it, and that's why the microbiome has become so important. And I think what got me on that journey, and we talked about this before, was I read an article about, you know, we're made up of bacteria, and that actually we're attracted to other people, even want to get into their space physically, like even kiss someone, because our bacteria is attracted to their bacteria. And that just blew it wide open for me. I was like, oh, wow. Quite a weird concept to think about.
But that's why you can never know. I remember when I was a teenager, all my friends had crushes on celebrities, and they would ask me, who's your crush? And I would always answer, I don't know until I've met them.
I can't smell them.
But, well, that's what it is. And you know, there is a French expression, je peux pas le sentir, means I can't smell him, means I can't stand that person. Yeah, I cannot smell that person means I can't stand that person in French. And I even know some couple therapists who ask couples, you know, when there's a problem, have you noticed that your partner's smell has changed? The day you become intolerant to your partner's smell is bad news.
It's a big problem.
Yes.
Well, the olfactory system is, you know, we smell things because it's a safety mechanism. And I think then with fragrances, a lot of people using a fragrance daily, a fragrance that they're used to, they're using too much because, Your brain says to you whether something's safe or not. And if the smell is deemed safe, it's not so strong. You don't really smell it. Your brain kind of cancels it out and is smelling other things. So if you're using the same fragrance every day, you tend to put on more. You're like, oh, it's just not lasting. People are talking and they're just overdoing the spray, and then they walk into a room and everyone's like, oh, you've got too much fragrance on. And so we become a bit tone deaf to the smells that we're using. That's why it's quite good to mix them up. Don't use them every day all the time, the same fragrance. It's like we don't wear the same clothes every day all the time. Mix it up. And this is why with the archetype fragrances, you express yourself differently at different times and you explore these different energies. And really we've created fragrances that are the frequency of that particular archetype energy. And you need all these energies, and you should explore or be at least conscious of these energies in your life. Yes, we haven't mastered all of them, but it's fun. Yeah, I think, Argentum is trying to deliver something that is unique and beautiful and adds value to someone's life and their experience and their health and their mental well-being, all wrapped up in one. Well, it's a difficult job, but it's something that is dear to our hearts that we try to do. That's the intention, at least.
Yeah, I love the fact that you have all these archetypes and there is a spiritual, cosmic dimension to your work. So when we did the skin microbiome, you gave me the cards and I pulled one and the card was the ruler.
Yes.
When I came home and I had the goodie bag, I thought to myself, I'm going to try the ruler fragrance. And I love it.
Yeah. It's an air sugar spiced. It suits you perfectly well.
So I think I'm going to get it. Also, I was thinking, because as I was saying, my boys, particularly JJ, showers himself with perfume, doesn't realize, puts 4 sprays, which is way too much, and I'm very sensitive to smell. So I was thinking their birthdays are coming up, so I'm going to come with them in the store, and for their birthday, they can pick a fragrance each, and hopefully they value it. But you see, interestingly, I had no idea about any of this when I had my children. I didn't wear a fragrance for the first few years of their lives because I saw it as pollution to their senses.
Yeah.
Particularly as a baby comes to the breast and they need a mom's scent. So I didn't wear fragrances until they were 3 or 4.
Yes, and people who start dousing their babies in fragrances. I mean, we know the pitfalls of talcum powder and Johnson & Johnson soaps and all of this. And again, it's like hair washing. It's very hard to break the barrier with hair washing because the hair is actually self-cleaning. And if you'll look like a mess for about 2 months, and then it starts to self-clean and you come out the other side. And my husband's done it, and one of my eldest sons has done it. They don't wash their hair. They wet their hair, and their hair is self-cleaning. And their skin's not oily. It's fantastic. It's amazing how the body actually self-cleans and looks after itself. So hair is a big one.
How long?
How long? The point is I could never do it because I don't think you'd have to wear a bag on your head for about 2 months. And you come out the other side and you know what? It's not oily. It is bizarre. And this is why the trend now with the shampoos is moving towards sort of the surfactants that strip all the oils. What we do is, and it feels good, and I even personally find it very hard to move away from this. You wash your hair with surfactants, strip all the oil off, it's springy and dry, and then we slap a whole lot of moisturizer back on. It's stripping all the natural oils off the hair. And it's the same as the skin. The skin has an acid mantle. You need the pH of your products to be at similar to the skin acid mantle at a 5.5, so you don't want to go more than a 6. You'll notice if you took a normal bar soap, it would be at a 9. It's really tight. You would wash your hands, they feel a bit dry. That's just stripping away all the natural oils, and that barrier is the protective barrier to your skin, so you're opening your face up to all sorts of problems. So there's so many factors here. It can even just be the pH of the product, to how we're cleansing too much. I mean, people who are multi-cleansing, using multiple cleansers, this is not the way to go.
I couldn't agree more. So I barely go to the hairdresser because less is more. And I never do 2 shampoos. And you notice the more you shampoo your hair, the oilier it gets.
The more you need.
And sometimes you've happened to have had to shampoo it maybe... I wash mine twice a week max. But sometimes I'll have to do it like every other day. I will have done it and I notice my hair is getting oilier. What I do is I wait 4 days and I suffer. 4 days it doesn't look good and then it gets back on its nice routine. And when it comes to cleansing, I have never washed my face in the morning.
Same here.
I have never
People are going to go, what?
splash a bit of water, but I have never used a cleanser because I'm thinking I already have dry skin. I'm not gonna strip off anymore. However, at the end of the day, makeup, pollution, all of this, you need the cleansing. And I love one of your products that I use every day. It's the soap. So it's not a soap. It looks like a soap, but it's a cleansing bar for the face. And it is one of the few face cleansers that do not leave my face either oily or dry. It leaves it perfect. And the amazing thing about it is it looks like a bar of soap. So when I travel, I can have it in a hand luggage and I don't have another product that's over 50 ml or whatever their limit is. That is, to me, one of your star products.
It's funny you talk about this product. This product, it goes under the radar a lot because it just looks like a bar soap, but it's a wolf in sheep's clothing because what it does is sensational. That is unique. It's soap-free. It's the first bar soap in the world to have DNA in it. It has active ingredients in it. It has a 23 parts per million silver, so it has a fantastic antibacterial function. And what we've used is very mild surfactants. I mentioned surfactants before. People might be, as a bit of a science term, but these are the cleansing agents that we use in products. You even use it in your fairy liquid when you're washing up that make the foaming. So anything with a lot of foaming, the pH is going to be high. This is something that will strip away the oil. And that's why your hair or your skin sends to the receptors, produce oil. So actually, the oilier people get, either in their skin or their hair, the more soap they're using then to clear away the oils. And actually, we have an oil, and we use this oil in our products. It's a very specific type of argan that's filtered in a certain way. But what it does is you wouldn't expect to use oil for an oil problem. But this oil sends to the receptors to slow down and regulates the sebum production. So you actually trick it to sort of saying, okay, get back into balance now. And we use that particular argan oil within our products. But the soap is a traditional tactile feel. And I have to say, those that get onto it, those that try it, they don't go back. And we've got customers that have just been repeat buying it forever and a day. It's one of those things that you want to stockpile. And for problem skin, it's sensational. People with acne, eczema, rosacea, psoriasis, this really is like the cleanser of all cleansers. It's pricey. I can't tell you how expensive it is to make. This is not a bar soap that you would get anywhere else, but it lasts a long time, and you'll notice the results as you have. Yeah,
it lasts for months, and when I have a little breakout, I take it and I rub it against the spots. It helps heal so quickly. I use the oil as well. So what I do is I use your moisturizer and I put a little bits of oil in it and I mix it. Or sometimes in the evening I'll moisturize first and then I add the oil on top. But I completely agree with you because, I grew up in Morocco using a lot of argan oil. And argan oil has never given me acne. And in fact, I've always seen my skin a little bit like my hair. Like you're saying, if I use two things that strip, that's when the problems come because the body is trying to overcompensate with sebum. So when I have breakouts, I do continue using my oils. But that bar is so helpful. We've been chatting forever, Joy. I think we can...
We could speak for weeks.
We can speak for weeks. So I hope people, out of this conversation, I truly hope the word gets round about fragrances. I'm definitely going to switch. And traditionally what I've done is for my body, I've used oils from Morocco. So I'll use argan oil. I oil my body. I do body brushing, and now I'm using your brush, which has nano silver particles in the bristles, and it's antibacterial, and that's wonderful because it doesn't harbor bacteria. And people used to ask me, do you use clean skincare products? And I used to say, I'm about damage limitation. So on my body, I'm using things from Morocco. I know it's just 100% oil. It's fine. But on my face, it doesn't matter. But as I'm getting older, of course, there's an evolution in my thinking, in my goals. And now I want to pay more attention on the shampoos I'm using, on the skincare I'm using. And I remember my mom switched to a shampoo that did not make foam when I was around 15. So she was around my age.
So even then she realized.
She would use this French brand called Ducret, and I remember she would wash her hair and there was no foam. And she was saying to me, this is better for you, and that's why she used it. And I'm coming around to that.
Absolutely.
The less is more.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, no aluminium in deodorants. I think my mum brought that up when I was a teenager. And it's just like looking for more natural deodorants where you talk about the lymph drainage and the sweat under your arms where you need to release these toxins. You're trapping everything with a metal like aluminium. Not ideal.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you're saying this because I'm not someone who sweats a lot. I don't sweat a lot. And I wish I did sweat more because that means that my lymphatic system would do a better job. So it's not doing the best job and I can see it. I switched to natural deodorants and I always wondered before doing that. I was thinking, hold on, I'm blocking the lymph nodes from excreting toxins. Can't be good for me.
It's not. And, it's finding a combination of, and this is what we're looking at developing, the crystal natural deodorant with silver potentially. So something that's antibacterial. And you may have heard of the crystal rocks. The crystal rocks are very effective. They're just not a good experience to use because it doesn't feel like anything's happening. You wet a crystal and you wipe it under your underarm. But you can get liquid forms and there are new ways. But there definitely needs to be a huge movement and improvement in underarm deodorants. And recognizing that this 48-hour protection is just blocking you up and not allowing you to release any of the toxin buildup.
I totally agree. But are those safe? The crystal, because it's aluminium crystal.
The crystal is a natural crystal that is used as a natural deodorant. I don't know if you've ever seen them in health food shops. So they're just like a pure, like a quartz-style crystal. And it's made up of salts. And you wet it and it lasts forever. You just dip it in water and you rub that under your arm. But yes, definitely aluminium is, when you see that on the ingredients list, that's something to avoid. It's like I look out for MSG or monosodium glutamate and I look out for aluminium. These are the two things I try to avoid.
Thank you so much for all your insights. I really love our conversations. And for anyone based in London, the Argent Tomb store is in Notting Hill. They also have treatment room downstairs with these wonderful lymphatic drainage treatments called the AXO method. And their coffee and teas are delicious, so pop in. That's how I discovered you. My neighbor was walking down the street. She was welcomed in the store by
a store manager,
by the store manager. And she said to me, Yalda, join me. They're really lovely here. You should meet them. And here we are, sitting here recording a podcast. Isn't that a lovely story?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fated. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, we could talk for years, but we'll give everyone a break.
Thank you to all of you who have joined us today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can go on Argent Tomb Apothecary website and check out all their products and definitely give a try to the bar that looks like a soap but is not a soap. It is my favorite.
Thanks, Yalda.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you for listening to this podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always such a pleasure to talk about health because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Looking after our health is a daily thing, just like brushing our teeth. We've got to focus on it, we've got to do it right so we can live better and happier lives. For those of you who are not members of the platform yet, we have a discount code for all our podcast listeners. You can get 15% off the memberships. Just enter the code podcast15 at checkout. Thank you, and make sure to read all the articles and all the free content we have on eatburnsleep.com to keep you motivated and informed and educated about living an anti-inflammatory lifestyle.